So a couple things here first. So Kalad is currently with DJ. That's why he's not here tonight, because of course he's defending his title this week, correct?
Right.
So that's very cool. And this is a particular iron trace. It's about 4 years old, 3.5.
Now, what iron do you think he's using here? Is that like a 9 or what do you think?
Yeah, I'm guessing
Wedge?
8, 9, something like that. Right.
Good.
And so first off, I would say DJ is not technical at all. So DJ is not worried about his body tech trace per se. But for tonight, he is the star of the show, right? And I think one thing that kind of I discovered today for sure, and I didn't quite realize until you kind of put it succinctly today in today's education seminar, is that for sure there are different traces from driver to wedge, right? Or driver to short game, right? I kind of figured that for sure.
Yeah.
But they're also, I was thinking maybe it's the same pattern, maybe a little smaller or shorter version, right? But sometimes I think DJ is probably going to be a good case. You can have one particular trace with the driver and maybe another particular trace with an iron, right?
Yeah.
And so as the expert here in traces, can you just give us a little bit of a teach on this particular trace with kind of a short iron?
And I get that question all the time. Do great players, and I'm excited to see DJ's trace as much as you guys are at home. Do great players show a uniform trace pattern throughout the whole bag? The answer is no. I'm open to that being the case, but I've never seen that be the case. Usually they're very good with one part of the bag and struggle with the other. And that's when the part of the bag that they're good gets into the part of the bag that they're struggling with. And I would actually tell you, 2 drives aren't created equal, because you could have a get it in a fairway drive, right? And that will have it'll have a similar pattern of trace, but it won't be exact as the all-out bomb and attack angle and launching up the lead side. It has a lot to do with it. So it's not even just the club. It actually is the type of shot the player is trying to hit that you see differences in traces. So don't get attached to one trace. They're all good. This actually, and you said this is a pretty unique trace. And once I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's a money trace. So again, this chart is inverted. These are his toes down here. That's his heels up there. So if we can go ahead and send him back. So he's going to load kind of in the midfoot. And then this is the trace that if you guys have gone on YouTube or something and seen Emiliano Grillo that I got to spend some time with a few years ago, this is a very similar trace pattern where he, at or near the top of the swing, starts getting into the trail heel there. And what he's going to do is, normally I would say stay under the crosshairs, but in this regard, he's going to stay above the crosshairs. So the pressure is going to go from his trail heel closer more towards his lead heel. So we'll send him forward there. And I'm going to tell you why in a second. I think that this is excellent. So there he is. He's at almost peak forward with that pressure. Okay. And then go ahead and bring him all the way into impact. Okay. So he's 74% in his lead heel. So basically the center of pressure went from his trail heel to his lead heel. Those that out there that are teaching golfers that struggle with early extension, you need to look at Dustin Johnson's iron trace here, because when the center of pressure goes from the trail heel to the lead heel, that's going to be able to allow the player to counterbalance, stay in their posture and their tilts, and be able to rotate. So TPI would call that dynamic posture. It's an excellent, obviously, if you didn't know, it's an excellent trace for an iron swing. And again, a player demonstrating this trace doesn't struggle with early extension typically. And he's pretty still bowed forward with his trail side down and rotated open. And there's a lot to learn from that for a lot of amateurs.
Yeah, you can see a lot of things that DJ works on. It's very simple, right? And I think one of the biggest things that I've seen Claude and DJ work on is just alignment and rotation. I think if DJ gets in trouble a little bit, it's because he's slowing down, right? So he's maybe a little bit too finessey, a little bit too slow with his body. Probably club drops in a little bit too inside out.
Right? Well, the Harmon family's always been pretty adamant that when he came like this, that was going to stay.
Right.
So you want to match that flexion. So and if you're watching DJ, not only does he flex at the top, but he has transitional flexion. So he flexes further in transition. You want to match that up with a fair bit of rotation.
Right. So you see that with very few or very many successful golfers with that move.
Yeah.
So I think David Duvall is a good example. fully open, basically, at impact, almost looking at the target, right? And there's probably a few LPGA girls and probably a few players right now currently that I can't think at the top of my head because I'm on TV. I'm nervous. DJ's a great example.
So, a great question.
Okay, yeah.
Do you
Sure.
guys mind if I interrupt you?
No,
So
go
ahead.
they're asking about what time you for velocity data.
Okay.
I would say that we have the velocity chart up there. It's all software needs to be updated. That today is being old to update software.
No worries.
So we're going to talk about velocity
Still
chart.
produces champions.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you could talk about that other graph up there.
That's right.
Sure.
Take it away, Jake.
Sure. So if we want to, I always recommend on the V1 Pro for the V1 pressure mat to set impact, which I believe we already did. Did we set it? Yes, we did. All right, beautiful. So if we can back that up, and again, remember these charts are flipped. So if you're wondering why DJ's linear speed is more, and that's what that's measuring, lateral speed is under instead of above. It's actually because it's flipped. So go ahead and send that through and just go to the peak lateral, please. Perfect. So this is when he would be moving his absolute fastest in a lateral state. And then you can see it dissipates and goes back to the median or the midline there. And that's where, so basically he's breaking his lateral motion there. And now he's going to move into more of a pure rotational vertical motion. So I get this question a lot. There's so many amateurs who were told to get laterally towards the target, but that wasn't the lesson for the rest of your life. Right. That was probably a good lesson when you used to slice the ball or swing across it to get your center of mass moving towards the target. Again, you can already see that he's shifting his pressure forward before the completion of his backswing. That is a hallmark of elite level golf, and his peak lateral velocity. You can see he has transitioned the club a few inches there. That will then dissipate. And this is what allows him to, if we want to step it forward, this is what allows him to decelerate that segment, pelvis segment, which obviously the deceleration, it's so interesting from the top to the bottom. They get to their peak speeds in terms of lateral, rotational, and vertical, and then they get it to negative by the time it gets to impact to impart all the speed in the club head, especially in speed creation with the driver. Again, this is just an 8-iron right here, but you can still see that his peak lateral speed is well before impact. There's a lot of club level players that their peak lateral speed is at impact. And on the V chart, you can see that they're sliding past the ball. A lot of times these players really struggle with club path and swing direction, block and hook scenario.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So
I want to say one more thing, only because I got so many questions on this, and you get your train of thought, and then players and coaches in the crowd, they all noticed that Dustin was looking ahead of the golf ball, so you can see his eyes looking that way. I'll ask you this because they asked you this. Did he come that way? Or did you guys tell him that? Or is this a drill and he just liked it?
I'm pretty sure he comes that way. The harder he rotates, the better. However, he has a little different signature swing with his driver, maybe three-wood, maybe long irons, where the head stays down just a little bit longer. And by that probably produces just a little bit more snap and power. But for sure, with irons, he is always rotating. And it's definitely a good idea if you have a limitation. I'm not saying he does. I mean, DJ has like a perfect screen on that, super strong, fully mobile in all the right places. Yeah. But if you have a player that maybe has a limited neck or mid back, something like this with DJ helping the player go ahead and look at the target instead of looking at the ball, it helps them rotate a little bit better because that head weighs a significant amount, right? And it's always going to be pulling you back wherever your mass is, right? So if you're rotating it and letting it go, it can definitely help you through impact.
So his, what a lot of instructors out there might call neck tilts, his neck tilts are different based on the clubs that he used, driver and iron. Right. That's fascinating. Right. I don't know why everybody wants to be the same. I mean, it's not the same golf club.
Right.